Hello, friends. Welcome inside, at least for me, Ben Garrett, the Riverland Roofing Studios. Riverland Roofing for all your roofing needs. 662-644-4297, riverlandroofing.com. He's Brad Logan, and today's guest here on Talk of Champions, Andy Staples, On3 college football national analyst. Hello to you already in the chat, including Fred G. Howdy, fellas. Great day to be a Rebel. I agree. Austin Wilson, 6902. Howdy, Toddy. Hope everybody's having a great morning. Ben, you need to start the podcast off with a little Project Pat's chicken head. For you, Austin, I will do that this week. For you, my friend, I will do that this week because missed opportunity this morning. But we will not be missing the opportunity to talk to Andy Staples here shortly. Brad Logan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Excited that the audio is fixed. And so, been, like I said, working on all of that. So we're good to go with that. Obviously disappointed with the way yesterday's game happened with Ole Miss baseball. And young man for Arkansas hadn't had a hit since April the 10th. And now, obviously, it's a home run, and Ole Miss loses a series in Fayetteville. It's just kind of really big difference between 12-12 and 13-11 because of kind of the magic number of 15, 16, however you're looking at it. So, yeah, got some work to do. And got some work to do this week against Texas A&M, which I think is one of the best teams in the conference. And then secondly, on top of that, you've got to finish off with Alabama on the road. Alabama just swept Vanderbilt. I mean, I understand the strength of schedule. Maybe Mississippi State has maybe a more difficult, but I can imagine a team in the conference that has a more difficult slate right now than Ole Miss. The way that the teams they have faced and really just a situation of where we'll get into it, but I think you look at some different ways some pitching was utilized down the stretch, but at the end of the day, you need to try to get that W, and they couldn't do that. Now they're 12-12, so you're counting backwards. You've got to get to 15 or 16, and you don't have that Governor's Cup game to kind of buffer. I think that hurts too.
Major E's, good morning, gents. God is good all the time, my friend. Thank you. All of you who are joining the chat right now, including Javon Campbell, 6249. What's going on with Hunter Elliott? And will he return next year? No, this is his last year. And what's going on with him is kind of what's been – there's a reason why he wasn't drafted back in July. And we'll get into all of this. Now the bottom line is Ole Miss needs to go probably 4-2 the rest of the way to secure its regional host spot, especially after – blowing the weekend series in Arkansas. Of course, they don't beat State. They don't beat State in baseball ever. But we'll get into all of that in just a little bit. This is Talk of Champions. That QR code above Brad Logan's head is for the Ole Miss Spirit. OMSpirit.com and affiliate of On3. If you scan it today, you can join us and try us out for $1. 5 days, $1. The Ole Miss Spirit, OMSpirit.com and affiliate of On3. And joining us now is one Andy Staples. The man, the myth, the legend. He's an On3 national analyst covering college football. And Andy is so kind as to have graced our presence. Andy, what's up, man?
What's up, gentlemen? How we doing?
Living the dream, buddy. How are you doing? Like, what's right now, like post-spring kind of stuff? What's really got your attention, grabbed your attention right now?
Well, last week with the Brendan Sorsby stuff,
yes,
that pretty much took over the whole week. And it's interesting because with no spring portal, we weren't sure if there was going to be one of those big stories like it was Nico leaving Tennessee for UCLA last year. And we're like, okay, well, this may be not going to happen. There may just be pretty quiet from here on out. But no, not quiet, because Texas Tech had pretty big plans and paid a lot of money for their quarterback, and now they probably can't use him. I mean, we'll see, but I don't like the chances of him playing for Texas Tech this year. So it's been that. And then, the former coach at Ole Miss seems to provide constant levels of entertainment.
No.
Chris Lowe's got a Trinidad Chambliss story out at On3 today, and it's got a little bit of back and forth between Trinidad and Lane Kiffin, and I thought that was impressive. I also thought Trinidad, by the way, I love the way the man's mind works. He's like, I don't have a deal with the country of Trinidad and Tobago, but if they would like to collab, my people are waiting.
That's the thing, man. It's like in this era, dude, if it ain't bolted to the ground and you can sell it, buddy, sell it. It doesn't matter what it is.
Exactly.
You can sell it. He's Andy Staples. You can probably check him out on Andy and Ari. It's their On3 national show. I watch it religiously. Those are my dudes. I think they're awesome. And that's how I keep up with the national stuff. So our thanks for you for coming on, man. And I want to touch on that Brendan Sorsby thing to kind of start this off, man. Like, the more and more I read about it, I cover Ole Miss for a living. I don't pretend that I'm a national dude like my man Andy over there or anything like that. But the general take, the more and more that comes out of this, or like the general feel I get is like, I don't know how this dude plays football anymore.
Well, he can play football probably in the NFL, but they have a little bit different policy on this. Now, they have their own policies about if because remember, as far as we know, based on the reporting we've seen so far, there were some bets on Indiana when he was playing in Indiana. Now, he was redshirting. He wasn't playing in those games. The precedent, I think, with that one in the NFL would be like Calvin Ridley, who did get suspended because he bet on the Falcons when he was on IR, when he was on the Falcons. And I think he was suspended for a whole year and then had to get reinstated. So, like the NFL, they don't ban you forever. College, they tend to ban you forever when you've bet on your own team, regardless of the amounts, regardless of whether you bet on them to win or to go over or not. And look, you have to do it that way because the whole business revolves around you can't have the illusion that it's fixed in any way, shape, or form. So, like, guys can't bet on their own teams. It's a fairly sensible rule. So yeah, I have a hard time seeing him come back into college because of that. I mean, we'll see. I mean, you guys have seen this in action. Obviously, if things don't go their way with the NCAA, they can choose to do the supplemental draft, and they may still do that. But they also could choose the lawsuit route, and you try to find a judge in Lubbock who can maybe be sympathetic to you. But I do point out, like, people didn't really pay attention to the Trinidad Chambliss case. The reason Trinidad Chambliss won wasn't because it was a judge in Mississippi. Like Joey Aguilar had a judge in Knoxville, and it didn't help him because Joey Aguilar was arguing something that the NCAA has pretty consistently handled. Like the rules that Joey Aguilar was arguing against, the NCAA handled those things fairly evenly and consistently. The rules that Trinidad Chambliss was arguing about, they had evidence that the NCAA had not applied that rule evenly. It's the same reason Owen Heineke won his case at Oklahoma. They had proof that, hey, here's similar circumstances. They've handled this set of cases this way, this set of cases with similar circumstances the exact opposite way. And so that will probably prompt the judge to say, you know what, I will give you that injunction. I don't think that's the case here. So they can do it. They can try to find a sympathetic judge, but I'm not sure it's the slam dunk everybody thinks that is.
See, here's the thing. Like, I'm not like, when I look at this situation, how this is the first one we've seen is shocking to me because of the prevalence and betting and everything like that.
Like, there will be more.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like for you, like for me, this is just like the tipping point. I'm curious for you. Like, I think that sports writ large is kind of having like a come to Jesus moment with some of this stuff. You know what I mean? Not like I don't care about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think the toothpaste is going back in the tube. And we got made fun of last week because we're doing the story. Our show's presented by BetMGM, like they're our title sponsor.
Underdog Fantasy. We could go all day right here. You know?
Yeah, I get it. But there are cultures where sports gambling has been part of the culture for a long time and the world hasn't fallen apart. In England, you could bet in the stadiums for a long, long time. Premier League soccer is still the biggest sport in the world, or the biggest sports league in the world. So everybody's gonna have to figure out how to live with it. I think. I don't think it's going to be a case of everything going back. Now, like, it's interesting because the NCAA actually did try to live with it. They passed a rule that said players can bet on the NFL and the NBA. And then a lot of the conferences said, you know what? I don't think this is a great idea. And they rescinded that rule. So now they're banned from doing that again. And it's, basically you can't bet on something that your school, if it's a sport your school sponsors, you can't bet on it at the college level or the pro level. That's the rule as it stands now. So like they can do parimutuel stuff, horses, high lie. I grew up in Florida. Still, we'd hit the fronton every once in a while. But you can do like combat sports, UFC, boxing, that sort of thing. But you're not supposed to do the bat and ball sports. And it's going to be interesting to see if that changes because it is so available. You guys know, I mean, you cover a college program, you're around a college campus a lot. It's not just athletes, it is college students in general. It is high school students. It's everywhere. And they've got apps now that are pretty much designed to get the high school kids into it, that you're not actually betting any money, but when you get legal, you'll know exactly how everything works.
It's like sipping on an O'Doul, then it's time to finally drink an alcohol, like a real alcoholic beverage. Like, hell yeah.
It's funny because I think about my first beer, which was a Milwaukee's Best Light, Beast Light.
Yeah. And
I'm like, that would have turned me off beer if I hadn't had some better ones fairly soon after that. Yeah. So I don't know that I drink the NA. I don't think the NA is a gateway.
That's really funny, dude.
Andy, I want to ask you kind of a big picture question in regards to college football. Is you and Ari follow the world of college football, top to bottom. What do you like? Maybe what do you dislike about the current model of the college football playoff? And do you envision any changes? And if you do, how soon do you think those will be enacted?
Oh, I envision changes. I don't like them. I don't want them. I like 12. I really enjoyed 12. I thought when they went from 4 to 12, I understood why. I thought the way they designed it was fairly elegant for the time that they designed it. And remember, that was when there were still 5 power conferences. And they tweak it after the first year. I like it. I like the fact there's an element of danger there because Notre Dame, which got left out, probably could have won the whole thing last year. So if you're leaving out teams that could conceivably compete for the whole thing, you've got a fairly exclusive system that's really interesting. They're going to get bigger. And the question is whether it's going to go 16 or 24, whether 16 will be a waypoint on the way to 24. As of 3.5 months ago, everybody except the Big Ten wanted 16 and the Big Ten wanted 24. It's been flipped in the last 3 months. Now everybody but the SEC wants 24 and the SEC wants 16. And oh, by the way, that's the leadership of the SEC wants 16. The rank and file, you just had Danny White, the athletic director of Tennessee, come out and say he wants 24. All the coaches want 24 because every coach wants a bigger playoff because they all think it'll allow them to keep their jobs. They don't realize that the standard just slides with the number, but it is probably getting bigger. I just don't know exactly when, but I think we're probably looking at the next 2 or 3 years.
We talked about Trinidad Chambliss. You brought him up a moment ago. The running backs room across the country, obviously covering Ole Miss, Kewan Lacey is at the top of the list of a lot of lists that have a possible Heisman Trophy possibility for a running back. How does he rank in your mind across the country? And what are some other running backs that could be better than him, I guess you could say, this year coming into the season?
Well, I think the two, like he's one of the very short list guys. I think the other one you need to look at is the guy that's at the place Kewan Lacey left, Ahmad Hardy. I mean, Mississippi guy who played at Louisiana Monroe and then goes to Missouri and averages 6.4 yards a carry. Those two might be the best 2 backs in the country going into the year. They're going to be pretty good. Guys that maybe people haven't heard of yet, Savion Hyder at Michigan, the freshman, they are really, really excited about him. Now, he's going to be splitting carries with Jordan Marshall, so I don't know that he's going to necessarily just blow up like that. But I do think, what you saw from Lacey last year, what you saw from Hardy last year, it's going to be fairly similar production this year, most likely. And so you're going to be really good to be in that mix with those two.
There are a lot of teams at the top of a number of polls. One particular poll from Josh Pate has Notre Dame, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State in Miami. I want to ask you quickly, one of the opponents of Ole Miss this year is on the road in Austin against Texas. Are you buying Arch Manning, Steve Sarkisian, and the Texas Longhorn stock this year?
Yeah, they should be pretty good. And the Arch thing's interesting because he wasn't as good as we'd all hyped him up to be last year. But if you watch the way he played as the season went on and as their offensive line got better, he improved quite a bit. So I'm expecting him to have a good year. Cam Coleman should change the math a little bit for them. It's not like they had bad wide receivers already. They have decent wide receivers. Now they're going to have really good wide receivers. They also completely revamped their running back room. That's what everybody that was there last year has basically been pushed out. And they brought in Hollywood Smothers, who was at NC State, and Raleek Brown, who was at Arizona State. So they're going to be better at the skill positions in general. And they already had a really nasty defense. So I do think they're going to be pretty good. They should be one of the best teams in the SEC. The question, is they get Ohio State week 2. How do they handle that? Because Ohio State has to replace most of its defense, but they'll still be really good. I think Texas is one of those, though, that you should kind of pencil in as one of the SEC teams that will make the playoff. I feel like they have everything they need. Again, the schedule is hard because of playing Ohio State early. But if they can avoid the one letdown, like last year that was against Florida, there's no excuse for that loss to Florida by them. If they can avoid that letdown, they're in the playoff and they're as talented as anybody.
If you look across the SEC, we talked about Texas, and obviously everybody's poll, insert service here, has the SEC littered in its top 25 poll. I know names like Georgia would be at the top, but a name like an Oklahoma, a Texas A&M, Ole Miss, LSU, what other names do you think at the end of the year very well could be part of that playoff, kind of the middle of the road team that you're kind of looking at in the SEC? That's
going to be the interesting one, Brad, because look, Ole Miss already did this. They just did it. There's no reason they can't go do it again. LSU is probably one that Lane's going to come in there. He's flipped the roster. We'll see with Sam Levitt, because remember, Sam Levitt has the foot thing. They're trying to get him better. He should be ready for the start of the season, but it's that's probably why they went out and got Husan Longstreet, to be honest, to make sure they had another person just in case
I think
something.
He'd be legit, dude. I think he's got a real shot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the USC loved him. It's just Mayava's really good, and so I think LSU's another one. I'm not sure. Like the new guys, you got Summerall coming in at Florida, and you have Golish coming in at Auburn. In both cases, they kept quite a bit of what was there. And in both of those cases, you would talk to coaches who played those teams, and they're like, they are way more talented than their record. I mean, Ole Miss played Florida last year, and Florida's just kind of run out the string, and it was still a game for a while. Like, they're talented. The question is, can he raise their level that quickly? And I don't know the answer to that. I think with Florida, the big question mark is offensive line. And we will not know until they start playing games, because they, like in the spring, they did not like 9 different combinations in the spring game of offensive linemen. So that one's a tough one. Alabama, we didn't even mention them, but they made the playoff last year. Theoretically, they should be better. You can't get much worse at running the ball than they were last year. And yet they still made the playoff, won a game in the playoff. So they fire their offensive line coach, fire their tight ends coach. If that is better, if that offensive line got better, then there's no reason to think Alabama can't be competitive. Brad, you mentioned Oklahoma. I'm of the mind that Oklahoma is probably going to be better than they were last year, especially getting Olin Heineke back. Like offense, they were similar to Alabama, and then they had no running game to speak of last year. John Mateer basically had to provide it, and then when John Mateer was hurt, they were just not the same. So if they keep John Mateer healthy and they have some semblance of a running game, I actually think they could be one of the better teams in the SEC, make the playoff again, and maybe make some noise in the playoff. That I think the question for them is can you keep Mateer healthy? Because that once he got hurt last year, it changed everything for them.
I'm just disappointed in y'all because y'all bring up Manning, y'all talk about Arch and how but look, what about Marshall Manning? Hold on, Andy. Have you seen this? It's not over yet. In 2030, look here. Yep.
Well, Mannings's not letting him go anywhere but Tennessee.
Well, hold on now.
Listen. The second Manning in the 90s chose Ole Miss, so I think that's probably preordained, right?
See, like somebody on the Ole Miss Spirit message board, that QR code there on your screen, try us out, $1, 5 days. They were like, Ben, it would be poetic if he ended up, I can't remember. I said, no. The true poetic landing for the next Manning would be the Peyton son going to Ole Miss, because, dude, back in the 90s, that was Dog Brewer, Andy. That was going on probation. Like, Peyton was going to be an Ole Miss Rebel, but then he couldn't, because now here it is. The prophecy fulfilled. Like, we're already talking about a 2030 prospect.
David Cutcliffe just retired from the SEC. It's not too early to just give him a job where you pay him to do nothing. And it's not like Ole Miss hasn't paid David Cutcliffe to do nothing before. Like he'll mention that buyout every once in a while.
I'm saying it's a hell of a buyout. So I'm like, y'all are over there talking about Arch, and I'm like, dang, we got to give a shout out to the 2030 prospect. That's when I was like,
by the way, 2030 sounds like so far away, and it's just not. Like, my son is in the class of 2028, which to me sounded like jetpacks and laser beams times.
Well, you just
he was
freaked
born.
me out. My 13-year-old, like, she's 2032.
Yeah.
Oh my! Oh, so death comes for us all. Well,
yes.
Good morning, everybody.
The empty nest comes for us all.
Hey, Andy, I want to ask you your thoughts on Pete Golding as a whole, just from a national standpoint. How you think he's done in the transition? How you think he's done, obviously through the playoff, and now kind of during the offseason? I know you kind of watched this program from afar. You were on campus last year for some games. With Lane as head coach and Pete as DC. Now kind of watching this program, what are your thoughts on Pete Golding?
Well, I think having the playoff to really get a sense of what he is as a game day coach gives you a lot of confidence. You know, getting to see him coach in really high stakes games, and obviously the Miami game didn't work out, but they were right in it. They beat Georgia, and he did it all in a very chaotic situation because you had Lane leaving. Obviously, the portal's not open, but it's about to open, and you're dealing with all that stuff too. I thought he handled all that really well. I don't think a lot of guys thrown into that situation would have handled it as well as he did. So I think it gives you confidence about what he will be as the full-time head coach because he's done most of the job already. And now we you got the Dabo stuff. I don't really care that much about the Dabo stuff because I don't think anything was going on that wasn't going on everywhere else. So the question now is, can you keep them at the same standard that they've created? And, this was a team that made the semis last year that should have made the playoff the year before but was talented enough. And so can you keep them at the talent level they need to be at so that they're in it every year? And then can you win those games? That's going to be the question. But the fact that we got to see him in those high leverage situations already, and he handled it well, despite it being his first time in those situations, I think probably tells you it's going to go fairly well.
Do you think we see any major changes to the world of NIL? The President Trump and the collective governing body of the United States came out with a new, play amount of games. Tommy Tuberville, the senator out of Alabama, played this many years. And
you mean former Ole Miss coach Tommy Tuberville?
Former Ole Miss coach, former Auburn.
Did not leave in a pine box,
which will never not be funny.
Gladly tell you that.
Will never not be funny. Tommy Tuberville, senator from Alabama. That's just subjectively funny.
And then he kind of started the whole 5 years to play 4 and all that. Do you think we'll see any drastic change over the world of NIL, collective bargaining possibly over the next 5 years? And how do you kind of foresee the world of NIL and pay for play in the world of college football over the next couple of years?
I mean, the 5 to play 5 is coming. They had to do it to get rid of all the Trinidad Shambliss thing doesn't happen if there's 5 to play 5. Because there are no waivers except for the 3 M's, which is military service, mission work, and maternity leave. And I don't think he would have qualified for any of those. So, but they're trying to get rid of the waivers essentially, so that there's not a thing that they can apply unevenly, and they can just say, well, that's the rule. You can sue us, but everybody's dealing with this rule, and they'll probably be okay with that because, like, the eligibility rules have held up when they've been challenged on antitrust grounds. What hasn't held up is anything capping pay. Nothing capping pay has held up because it's collusion to price fix a labor market, and the federal government tends to frown on that. So the question is, what's going to change now? Collective bargaining would allow them to make rules and actually enforce them because the players would have agreed to them. You got to get the players to agree to collectively bargain first, and the players got it really good right now. Now I think there's a way to do that, and that's give them more money. I think college football will eventually get to where all the other pro sports are at in terms of the percentage of the revenue that goes to the players. And once it's there, then everybody's probably gonna be on board with collective bargaining. There's still a chance that they could get something passed through Congress. I think the idea of anything that would allow them to really control spending on players is pretty slim. I don't think they're going to be able to get a blanket antitrust exemption that says you can just, cap the people's wages. It's not going to happen. So I think it would help if the schools would just admit they're paying them to play football. That'd be a good start. Like, everybody knows that's what it's for, guys. You don't have to hide it anymore. I get people on Twitter like, this is just pay for play. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, what did you think it was going to be?
What did y'all think it was back in the 2010s when it was all kind of blowing up in everybody's faces?
Yeah.
And you're saying, like, come
on.
Boy,
the duffel bag guy just got blown out of the market, by the way.
And the thing is like you still got the duffel bag guy. It's just like now, like Ed Orgeron said, he doesn't have to go through the back door. You just go through the front door.
Yeah, but he has to bring a briefcase with a lot. He basically brings a briefcase with a cashier's check. It's not in cash anymore.
And it's a spreadsheet saying, and see, this is how we'll allocate all of our dollars, and this is where it'll be for you. And so
exactly.
Come on.
Andy, I want to ask you from just an SEC, from the SEC standpoint, not many things that Commissioner Greg Sankey does makes me scratch my head. One thing that he did, and it wasn't very well received from the coaches, was a 9-game schedule. I mean, the SEC was hard enough as it was. What were your thoughts on a 9-game schedule, and did it surprise you that Commissioner Sankey signed up for that with so much pushback?
No, because everybody thinks the 9-game schedule is about the playoff. It has nothing to do with the playoff. Like, the 9-game schedule was originally requested by Texas A&M in 2019 because everybody was getting super bored with their schedules and people were having a hard time selling season tickets because the divisional schedules had gotten so boring, and you saw teams from the other division, if they weren't your annual opponent, you saw them so infrequently that it didn't even feel like you're in the same conference. So that was the genesis of it. It was to make sure they kept selling tickets. And so you had a lot of schools on board with that early on. Now, eventually, you had people that decided they were against it because it made the schedule harder. It made it harder to make the playoff. But the reason they did it was because the schedule sucked. Like, the home schedules for most teams absolutely sucked. And so that's why they did it. Now, the world changed around it while they were arguing about it. And now you have a situation where the playoff didn't get bigger. They didn't get any sort of material change in how the playoff teams are selected, and you have a harder schedule now. So they're going to have to figure that out. I hope the committee will look at schedules in an objective way and reward teams that schedule hard schedules and punish teams that schedule terribly. But we'll see if that happens. Now, look, I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, the committee does look at this like this. It just doesn't always line up the circumstances. So 2024, remember, Indiana is 11-1. And then you have the 3 SEC teams at 9-3, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Alabama. If Indiana had gone 10-2, one of those 9-3 SEC teams was getting in over them because it had a better schedule and it would have had better wins. But that's the tricky part. Now, like last year, Alabama gets in over Notre Dame and actually was ahead of Miami because of the resume, because it had a tougher schedule, because it had better wins. The eye test, it didn't pass against either one of those teams. So everybody who's like, well, they just look at the loss column. They do sometimes, but they do actually look at the schedules. I think you're going to get a 9-3 team in the 12-team format. Now, the 12-team format might not last long enough for that to happen. You'll definitely get a 9-3 team into the 16 team.
How long?
And you'll get an 8-4 team into the 24 team.
And that's what I'd want to avoid is the 8-4 getting to the 24. Because like when you're talking about the Greg Sankey, the 9-game and all that kind of stuff, like from people I talked to, like what part of the understanding was, all right, I'll go to 9 games in the SEC, but we're sticking to just 16 as far as expansion. And now, like you said, it's completely flipped to where the SEC is
that's because the Big Ten relented on the automatic bid thing. Originally they said it needs to be this time last year it was 16 teams. 4 Big Ten, 4 SEC, 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, and then a group of 5 or group of 6, I guess now. Then they were going to go to 24. They played around with the idea of different automatic bid numbers, and then they just ditched them. They're like, okay, no automatic bids. It's all at larges. top 24. And that's when the ACC and the Big 12 are like, yep, sign us up. We're good with that.
Well, see, I've got a question about Ole Miss in 9-3. All right, so first of all, I've been watching my guys, JD Pickle, my guy Andy Staples, my guy Ari. Y'all are great. Y'all aren't as bad about it as others, but it seems like if Ole Miss, if LSU, if Alabama was returning Trinidad Chambliss and Keywan Lacey, I don't think there'd be any real debate about like ranking them in post springs and stuff like that in like the top 5, right? So explain to me, tell me it's just Ben's broken Ole Miss conspiracy brain. They're like that's all it is, because like I don't understand why Ole Miss isn't getting the post spring love from some that I think they otherwise would if the logo was different. Is that conspiracy brain, or is like
no? It's the logo.
Okay,
it's purely the logo. I haven't done a top 25 post spring thing, so
but when you do, now you go, well, dang, now I got to put them at 5 just because so Ben won't be like, damn it.
Yeah, well, I messed up Indiana last year. Same thing, logo. And then Clark Brooks, the stat cat, comes out with his top 100 impact players in college football, and I see that 6 Indiana players are on it, and I'm like, oh crap,
oh shit,
I messed this up. They're gonna be good.
Yeah.
So no, I think I would put Ole Miss definitely in the playoff zone. Somewhere in the top, which would be somewhere in the top 11, top 10, top 11. And then if they play their way out of it, great. But they bring back enough. Chambliss and Lacey is enough. They bring back enough to justify having them there. And let's be real here. Preseason rankings were always a crapshoot. They're even more of a crapshoot now because of the way teams change with the transfer portal. No roster is recognizable really, other than a few. Notre Dame is very similar to last year. Georgia's is going to be very similar. But most teams are going to be markedly different. Like even the ones that still recruit really well out of high school and develop guys out of high school, like Ohio State, look at how many good players they lost off their defense. They are going to look different. They still may be really good, but they're going to look different.
One more question for Andy Staples, so kind enough to join us here today. You can follow him online with Ari Washington, and it's the Andy and Ari show on On3. So proud of everything that they have done. It's a terrific show. One more question before Andy gets out of here today. Andy, I'd love to ask you, I get asked this question a lot from a national perspective. I think locally we kind of understand the importance of Pete Golding, John David Baker coming in, kind of understanding that offense and understanding the defense kind of stayed where it was from last year. But the question I get asked a lot, I'll ask you, with Lane Kiffin headed off to LSU along with Charlie Weiss Jr., along with Kevin Smith, insert all these coaches here going off to LSU. In your opinion, how big of an impact is that going to put onto the season, in your opinion, with those coaches headed off to LSU with so many new coaching faces in Oxford?
That's going to depend on John David Baker and how well he takes over. Now, he's got a head start. They already had him working in the playoff. So
what a weird situation. It's just never going to make.
I also think keeping Joe Judge helps too.
Yeah.
So you have some continuity, especially someone who worked with the quarterbacks, who was there with the quarterbacks last year, who can help be a translator to the quarterbacks and to the new coaches, saying, "Hey, here's what we called it. Here's what we said. Here's what we did," and they'll say, "Okay, here's what we do." And I think it makes it easier for everybody to adjust. And again, John David Baker being thrown in, and that was not the ideal situation. It wasn't what they actually wanted to happen, but it had to happen. I think that helps too, because he's got an idea of how Trinidad Chambliss works, how Keywan Lacey works, how this offense works. And I think everybody probably came into spring with a better understanding of one another than you'd normally get when you were replacing a coordinator.
He's Andy Staples. He's the man on 3 national college football recruiting analyst, reporter, whatever you want to call him. I call him the best in the business. I hope to see you for sure on September 19th. All right.
I don't know if I'm high enough ranking to get, like, everybody wants to go to that game so bad.
Andy.
And look, I got to be honest with you. When my son's high school football schedule came out, the open week is that week. So like, I just might move to Oxford for the week.
dude, you have a place to stay with your boy Ben. You know, like I'll put you up wherever you need to go.
Beautiful.
We'll take care of it. You know.
Well,
Like-
let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this, and I've run this by Ari, who he's got a very young child, so midweek travel is a little harder for him,
of course.
But should we spend like Monday, Tuesday in Baton Rouge, and then move to Oxford for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? I think that's the way to do it.
Now don't tease me with the good time. Like now, if you don't do it, I'm going to be like, dude, because I want to be able to do this show to go. And now we're going to go to Andy and Ari in Baton Rouge.
We'll make that happen regardless. Wherever we are, we'll make that happen. Yeah. But I'm just trying to think, has there been a game that has been this exciting from a pure vibes standpoint, from a pure revenge, hatred? You did this thing to me, and now I'm going to do this thing to you. Like, I can't think of one. I cannot think of one.
I remember how bad it was when Ole Miss went back to Fayetteville for Houston Nutt.
2000.
Yes,
that was pretty.
And that was very soon after. That was right after.
It was the first time I ever saw college football in that way. Like, I've had a beer bottle thrown in my head at Baton Rouge before. Trey Fry, former Ole Miss wide receiver, saying, "Hey, take Ben to Baton Rouge with you." Jarrell Post says, "Ben, you can't go without me beside you," because he's worried that I'm going to die. Either way, that week I expect Andy Staples to be in Oxford, Mississippi at some point, and I'll make sure that the barbecue is good. I'll make sure you get treated.
Can we get Ludacris there too? Like,
thank you.
I think he should actually play Ho before the game.
Look at the gifts I got from all that shit, Andy. Look at all this. Like word of mouth on vinyl. Come on now.
On vinyl. Now,
yes. Andy understands the
Ho is on back for the first time.
Yes.
His debut album. It is the best Ludacris song.
Yes.
And everybody thought you were quoting area codes.
No.
Like, you had to own the album to hear Ho. It wasn't on the radio.
Yeah. So, that's the true ball knower is all I'm saying. It's like true ball knower. Thank you, Andy. You're the best, man. That's Andy Staples, On3 national analyst. Man, he is absolutely awesome, and no one has better information or better opinions. He's just the absolute best, man. So our thanks to Andy Staples, who I think the absolute world of, man. I just think he's fantastic at what he does. And Brad, man, you knew all the big picture, SEC questions to ask him. And here's one I want to throw at you. All right, who's got more pressure on them as a head coach, or rank choice them? Who has the most pressure of these SEC head coaches next year? Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Pete Golding.
Well, I think Pete Golding is easily third.
Easily third.
But I do believe that it's between Sarkisian and Lane. Probably Sarkisian has the most pressure. And then I would put Lane second, because Lane's got to go 9-3 before the pressure really ramps. I thought Andy was great talking about Texas, because Texas has a 9-game schedule. Texas also has a team like an Ohio State that they're going to have to play early. Is that not the opening? Is it opening game?
And one of the best games of the year, man. Like, I love that matchup. Like, I think that's where a lot of college football is going to go to too, Brad. Is like, rather than the big, or the bowl games are dying, especially as you see expansion 24-16. It doesn't matter. Like, if you don't make the playoff, no one's going to care. So bowl games, championship games, all of that they're on their way out, right? So where you could really see that kind of stuff, those big events be retrofitted is at the beginning of the year, season kickoffs, like Ole Miss and Louisville and Nashville at Nissan Stadium, the last year for Nissan Stadium. Like, I think that's where that's going to take, because like that is a marquee matchup and critical. Here's the thing though, like in this new world though, in the old days, whoever lost that game, you were going to be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. You know what I mean? In terms of trying to climb back into national championship contention. Now, those teams could win the rest of their games the rest of the way, but you still got the high profile matchup. But I think you're right. I think it's Sark, because there are already certain expectations that come with being the coach that coaches Arch Manning. But now that he's done his developmental phase, if you will, he's done the roller coaster highs and lows. Now you've surrounded him with Cam Coleman. You've surrounded him with Hollywood Smothers. If you do not make the playoffs with this team, let alone win a game or two, but certainly make the playoffs, all bets are off with Sark. So I think that's absolutely true. With Lane, it's a lot of self-creating. But the reason I put Pete in there is because Pete's got to do a different type of proving than those other twos have to do, right? He has to take a team that's ready to contend, that no one would question, no one would put 8th instead of 5th or 4th or 6th. Wherever, like I just think the rankings of 8 to 10, what I'm seeing post spring rankings of Ole Miss is complete nonsense, and it's all because of, as Andy's admitted, and I appreciate him doing so. It's the logo. It's the logo. So I think he didn't hesitate. So I think for Pete, it's important to if he can, and it's a different type of pressure, but it's a pressure all the same of ridding Ole Miss of that stigma. And showing that it's less about cult of personality, even though we know that to be true because of the playoff run. It's now that Ole Miss is at a contention place that it never was before. This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett. He's Brad Logan. Let's hear from some of our sponsors. Thanks to all of you. Got some questions in the chat. We're going to get right to them. This is Talk of Champions.
Homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require Riverland Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, Riverland Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what Riverland Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
Hey, Rebels, your truck is here. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Oxford presents the all-new Ram Rebel. It's Ram, the Rebel way. Send an unmistakable signal. Rebel 24/7. Ram Rebel from your friend in the car business. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Oxford.
Come by, let's be friends. I'm Warrior Philip Hearn. Raising my family here in Mississippi, I've tried to teach my kids to help others. I learned that from my parents. And as a Mississippi lawyer, I want to help you too. If you're hurt in a traffic accident, 18-wheeler wreck, or have insurance trouble, call 601-720-3541. That's my cell. You call, I'll answer. Let's get started. Make your first call to the Hearn Law Firm today.
Bye, babe. Let's get to work.
Advanced technology to accelerate business growth. There's more to see.
Start my weekend.
C-Spire, customer inspired.
Our thanks to C-Spire, Riverland Roofing for all your roofing needs. 662-644-4297, riverlandroofing.com. The little house up top. I know that Billy Landis and some of our friends over at Riverland, including Parker Caracci, went turkey hunting this weekend. I've been getting some pictures. And friends, when I say I don't know nothing about turkey hunting, but this seems pretty good, you'll know what I mean. Look at it. Look at this. Look at this. Look at Parker Caracci with this big old turkey. I'm trying to say bad words. I've already said too many. Look at that. Parker getting him a turkey. It's turkey season. I don't know much about turkey season, but look at old Parker getting him one. This is Talk of Champions. Our thanks to Riverland Roofing and all of our sponsors and all of you in the chat who support everything we do. So we're going to talk about a number of different things, including baseball here in a second. But first, I want to jump to the chat because there's been some questions. The first one I saw was from Major Ease. Ben, I appreciate your breakdown with Zach about the basketball portal recruiting. Can y'all give us an update? To me, it just feels like Beard is adding whoever he can get and isn't hitting on talent. It was a talent issue, here's the bottom line. Ole Miss has the same amount of money this go around in the portal as they did last year. Last year, that would have led to Ole Miss being, or the current number they're paying out, would have been about middle of the road of the SEC. That same number makes them in the bottom tier of the SEC. So that's where you see those missing out on those top end guys. I think there's something to that. The money, not that it's not there, but that's the structure and the price point that they're working under. As far as the talent that they've gotten, it has been underwhelming for the most part, but I would argue that their most recent commitment is more in line with what I hoped to have seen. early on and throughout the whole entire portal process, the Arizona State commitment. And I've got to pull up all the stuff about Stephen here. I'll do that in a second. But first, I'll give it to you, Brad. What do you make of portal recruiting, where it is, and kind of Major E's question here?
Yeah, I mean, you and Zach have done a great job kind of following that. I've just kind of been following it before. I've really been more focused on the women's transfer portal than anything. But just from the men's standpoint, I kind of stand with what others on the Ole Miss Spirit have said. Is it's been kind of lackluster, and it's been a lot of you're going to have to show me to let me know if this is going to be a good recruiting haul or not. I mean, we've just kind of seen the players that have entered the portal. You know, the Ole Miss official social accounts have been very big on the fact of Pat Pinkins, Elias Carmodine coming back. And, you know, it's just kind of been that, and kind of been a couple of people they've talked about. But I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a particular roster next year that's going to be you need to show me something early on to see just how good this team's going to be.
Well, I think San Diego Truitt from Arizona State is more in line with what I thought they would try to do or be able to get done in the portal to recover, or not recover, but to bounce back from 15 and 20. There was a lot to be excited about in terms of how they finished the season, but that team doesn't exist anymore. Only 3 players are left from that team: Pat Pinkins, Elias Carmodine, and Zach Day. Zach Day is a depth piece at his very peak, but Pat and Pinkins, you need to step into all-league caliber play on a consistent basis. Same thing with Elias Carmodine. If anything, you need one of those two guys to emerge as that slam dunk NBA prospect, because what you've added so far isn't a lot to write home about. I think Roma Sipula is going to help you, but I think San Diego Truitt can really help Ole Miss. 6'11", 8.6 points, 6.1 rebounds per game, started 30 of 31 games for Arizona State, shot 45% from the field. He's an Argentina native, great athleticism. So while it hasn't been what you hope to see, there needs to be some context added here. I was told at Meet the Rebels by roster builders over there at the TUI Center to be patient, that it'll start to make a lot more sense. Like, they understand, number one, why there's some consternation and concern, but also understanding what they're working with and putting it together in that way. They just beg for patience. I think Truitt's a good example of that patience, why it needs to be exercised, because that is a good player that can help Ole Miss bounce back from 15 and 20. But is it enough? That I don't know. They're not done. They've still got at least 4 spots to fill. I expect them to take their time with it. But Truitt and I'm trying to think, was it Cisick? They replaced, like, for example, Tyler Weeks. Or no, I know exactly who replaced Tyler Weeks. Everyone said, for example, that Ole Miss got beat out by Memphis for Tyler Weeks. I actually talked about how Ole Miss was in a battle for him for Tyler Weeks. Turns out, from everything I'm hearing, there was a decision that had to be made. And then you're starting to say Dazier Haskins, a transfer from St. John's, was chosen instead of Tyler Weeks. And whether you think that was the right choice or not, that's the debate, not whether or not Ole Miss believes it got done when it needed to. They're not anywhere close to being done, and I'm still reserving judgment till I see it. It is underwhelming, but I do think Truitt, like, you could see the vision more in that way, but it's still an incomplete vision. And it's still, no matter what they add from here on out, it's going to be, like Brad said, you got to show me first. And until they do, especially after last year, putting together a portal class that everyone was excited about, and the coaches over there in the TUI Center were saying it's a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament. Whatever happens from this point forward, like, I like the addition of Truitt. I think Patton Pinkins retaining him was huge. Same thing with Elias Carmodine. Do I think this is a tournament team? No, I do not. Are they markedly better than last year going into? Well, last year they said they were second weekend in the NCAA tournament team, and they were nowhere close. I would rather go about it this way then, and see with Chris Beard having to really change some things philosophically, whether he wants to or not, really having to adjust some things. I would rather see it that way than a continuation of what wasn't working. So we'll see. That's a long way of saying it's incomplete. I do think Truitt is more in line with what you'd hope to see them add, but it's certainly not enough. And regardless of how it finishes from here on out, I'm going to have to see it too, Brad. From Jeff Sessions, Ben, how good is Keegan Croucher? Does he fit our system at Ole Miss? Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country in the Elite 11 finals. really has come on ever since he committed to Ole Miss, has gotten better and better as a prospect. Absolutely fits the system. He's a good runner, but he's got an absolutely huge arm. And even more than that, he's got a teammate in David Gabriel George, who, if they come together, holy cow, the future of Ole Miss football, it'd be hard to be any more excited about. So he's one of the very best in the country. In my opinion, I can't remember the last time Ole Miss signed a high school quarterback that was this ready to be, or like that you could crown this early as, oh yeah, if you can get him on campus, he's a guy that will be starting for you in the future. He is that caliber. I can't think of the last one. Ole Miss has been transfer dependent. Matt Corral would be that guy. Matt Corral, when he chose Ole Miss over Florida, flipped from Florida back in that recruiting class in like 20, good grief, that was around 2020. So all of that is a blur. 2019-18, maybe Matt Corral then, but Keegan Croucher, in my opinion, has better measurables and has an equal arm coming out of high school to Matt Corral, and he had one of the biggest of Matt Corral arms in his class. So absolute stud prospect. Ole Miss has done a tremendous job of keeping him committed, keeping him pushing towards signing day, despite immense pressure, not just holding off that pressure, but asserting itself as well. Like Indiana really made a push to try to get him to come and visit. And Ole Miss said, no, either if you visit Indiana, we're moving in a direction like then you're showing us you're not as committed to us as we are to you. And we have other options interested. And Keegan Croucher reaffirmed and re-showed his commitment to Ole Miss. So it just shows he's a wanted man by the defending national champions. Not just them, but Georgia as well, who's been the class of college football for so long. This is a really good player. And yes, a player of that caliber, regardless of his ability to run or not, yes, he fits the system. He's got that big of an arm. What happened with Indy Okafor? Ole Miss never took his commitment. He didn't flip. No one didn't. Ole Miss didn't take his commitment. And he publicly went official with it, but it wasn't mutual. And that's why he was never announced officially, never even really talked about afterwards. And his next option was Mississippi State. So that's what happened with Indy Okafor. So as far as basketball goes, it's not knocking you over, but I do like Truitt was a good piece. And I don't want that to get swept under because of the underwhelming nature of maybe the rest of it. It's less about the going and getting the biggest names and trying to put a roster together. Because last year, even with the biggest names, the roster didn't make sense. You know what I mean? The roster didn't fit. And now Chris is trying to make the roster fit all together. Will it work? I don't know. Is it underwhelming? Absolutely. Is it better today with Truitt than it was without him? Absolutely. Now can you go add 4 more of them? You go add 4 more of them, maybe I get a little bit more bullish on what he's done.
Well, I mean, last year we thought the roster was, as you put it, second weekend in the NCAA, and that didn't work. So I'm willing to roll the dice with this particular roster and to see kind of where the chips fall. I want to go back to football just for a moment. Before we went to commercial break, you talked about the schedule for Ole Miss, and you specifically talked about that game in Nashville, the last season inside Titan Stadium, and it's against the Louisville Cardinals. And by the way, Josh Pate, who I put a lot of stock in, has Louisville as a number 25 team post-spring. I don't think necessarily the poll is important. What I do think is important is that he has them in the poll. And I think if you look at Louisville, what they're building, I don't think that's going to be a rollover and just, grab one and come to the house. Yeah, I think Ole Miss will be a pretty heavy favorite. I think Ole Miss will be better. But it's just one key component for this Ole Miss team, and there it is. Thank you. Number 25 is the post-spring poll. Josh has Ole Miss as number 8. And then down the list, I think it's interesting that he's got Oklahoma at number 9. I think he's buying some stock in Oklahoma. I am too. I think Oklahoma is going to be better than they were last year. That return trip to Norman is going to be hard for Ole Miss.
Salient comment under this poll from our guy Ole Memes on Twitter. Ole Miss plays 7 of these teams this fall. Yeah. It's a challenging schedule. Texas,
very, very challenging.
I mean, we could go through it all. Oklahoma. This is a tough schedule.
Well, start at the top when you have Texas and Georgia.
Yep, there's Georgia. I was looking for Georgia. My mic was blocking it. You got Georgia, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma at 7, 8, and 9. I actually think that Josh kind of cooked with this one. I wouldn't put Notre Dame number 1. I think that's insane. And also, I think that Ole Miss at 8 is only because of the logo, because of what Andy said, and he's He gave me the answer I was expecting, like that I thought I was true, but didn't expect any of them to say point blank. And Andy straight up was like, "Yeah, it's logo."
No
I appreciated
hesitation.
that, man.
No
It's a
hesitation.
tough schedule.
And we'll get into this. It's a long way to September 19th. But I do appreciate the fact that he doesn't have LSU at like number 2 or 3 in the country, and that is a logo pick. And the reason I say that is because LSU has, right now some uncertainties at quarterback, and I'm a little surprised that Lane is going into the season and went through the transfer portal season without getting a solidified quarterback when he knew that Sam Levitt had issues with his leg. He also knew that this is a particular injury that's not one that you can just get over quickly. It's one that can kind of bob its head, possibly in the latter parts of spring. And then, of course, heading into the fall is some uncertainty there. So I was a little surprised by that. A team that really intrigues me is a team that Ole Miss has not played, and that's Alabama. The dynamic of Kalen DeBoer as head coach and Kalen not being Nick Saban. If you look at last year's schedule, I remember outside of Tiger Stadium, I was, kind of hanging out by the car, visiting actually with some LSU fans and watching that South Carolina-Alabama game. South Carolina had that game won. And there were a number of games last year for Alabama to where they very easily could have finished 7-5, 8-4 with the way that kind of schedule went. I don't know if the numbers really line up, to be that bad, but I know there were a number of games in which Alabama didn't play particularly well and had to come back in the end and win. And of course they won those games, but that's a team I'm going to be watching. Here's another team I'm going to be watching, not just because of the familiarity with Caden Lee at wide receiver and quarterback Austin Simmons. I'm genuinely fascinated with Missouri next year because I do believe with Ahmad Hardy, that 1-2 punch with the Simmons and Hardy. And again, this is not sour grapes. I've told you, I've told others in the chat that I've seen out in public. I just don't know how good Austin Simmons is at quarterback. And so I think we're going to learn a lot this year with Austin Simmons. And
this is his put up or shut up.
It is. And I'm not saying he may come out and be the best quarterback in the conference. I'm not saying that he's not.
Here's the thing, Brad. It's like I don't want us to forget what it was like in July last year, when the entire conversation about Ole Miss football and its contention status outside of Lane was Austin. When Mark Henry, WWE legend, sat down with me at SEC Media Days, and I'm trying to mark out about his Fox retirement, his kayfabe retirement, and he'll turn on John Cena, and he wants to talk about Austin Simmons. All right? We don't need to forget the caliber of player, or at least the caliber of prospect, because let's separate player and prospect, right? Player, he's got some stripes on the wall. Prospect, it doesn't get much better in what he could be, but he hasn't been that yet, right? And I just remember back in July, everybody was buying in. Peter Burns was buying in. Josh Pate was buying in. When you talked about Ole Miss's contention, Austin Simmons, how good is Austin Simmons going to be? Turns out Austin Simmons had little or nothing to do with why Ole Miss went 13-2 last year. It was Trinidad Chambliss. But that prospect, and it wasn't anything of his fault. It was no fault of his own. That prospect still exists. Injury doesn't rob you of what you still could be. So it's still very much, in my opinion, a not likelihood, but certainly a possibility that Austin Simmons becomes that exact player that all thought he was going to be this time last year. And the fact is, this is a difficult as hell schedule, and the fact is you get him at home. Good. Because I wouldn't feel much, I'd feel pretty some type of way about it.
I'd feel Oklahoma-ish.
Good. From last year.
Go to Columbia. Yeah. Yeah. Ole Miss has got to go on the road. Josh has Florida at 21, and I think Florida is going to be really improved. I think Sudu likes Florida too.
He loves Buster Faulkner, and I do too. He's got me on the Buster Faulkner, train. The offensive coordinator for Florida came from Georgia Tech, future SEC head coach, according to one Sudu Upadea, actually floated him as a candidate for Ole Miss after post Lane. I'm like, dude, you don't take Ole Miss isn't hiring Georgia Tech's offensive coordinator, but he's that high on Buster Faulkner.
Yeah.
He thinks he's got that kind of
one thing. And
potential.
look, I'm going to get a lot of trouble for this, and whatever.
Trouble.
I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but this is just the truth. One thing that differentiates Lane Kiffin from Pete Golding, in a large degree, is Pete has won some big games as head coach, and Lane has not at Ole Miss.
Why would you be worried about taking heat for saying something that is objectively true? You have got to stop being softer than baby shit.
The reason I say that is you look at what Ole Miss did on the road at Florida and just really played terrible. And lost that game when it essentially was headed to the playoff. It lost a game against Kentucky when it was headed to the playoff. One game Lane did win. I think objectively, my opinion, biggest win in Lane's career was on the road at Oklahoma. I mean, I truly believe that was his biggest win, and that's going obviously against the win at Georgia, and I get all that, but that win at Oklahoma was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think Pete had a lot to do with that. I mean, they scored a lot of points, they being Oklahoma, but I mean, the defense stood his ground late in the game, and that was a battle. I do like Ole Miss's chances a lot more because Pete has shown that he can go on the road and win. He went, in hostile territory, and I understand it was kind of a partisan Ole Miss crowd, but it was still the Sugar Bowl. And, he was able to do that. Obviously won the big game at home against Tulane and probably more of a 50-50 crowd on the road with Miami. But he's proven when the lights are bright, he can get the job done. Now, I'm not saying that Ole Miss is going to win every game next year, but I do think it's fair to say that Pete has proven that he can win big games at Ole Miss, and Lane really didn't prove that. I mean, he won a lot of games, and he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest to ever do it. But when the chips were down and he wants you to hold their popcorn, they held it and they beat you. So that's something that Ole Miss fans have to kind of understand. I think can excite Ole Miss fans moving forward.
I don't understand from the chat as we wrap things up. Javon Campbell 6249. I don't understand how we lost James Scott, who ended up transferring from Ole Miss basketball to Georgia. He was paid $1.8 million last year. Ole Miss wasn't going to pay him $1.8 million, which came out to like $30,000 per rebound. Again, they tried to renegotiate. He wanted a different price point. They cut bait. Again, a decision you could say, I don't know if I like that. He ends up at Georgia, but that's the decision Ole Miss made. And coming off of 15 and 20, that's what you pay Chris Beard $23 million or whatever it is. You know what I mean? To figure out. And so at that price point, replacing him with Truitt and the St. John's transfer and Seasick as well, I don't know if it's going to work. I have my very serious doubts, but that extends beyond roster construction. But that's what happened with James Scott. The price point didn't make sense anymore. And I completely understand that. What I don't understand is if Ole Miss baseball has to go 4-2 the rest of the way to host a regional spot, like, is that enough? Or would they, like, what's the whole breakdown for you? Because we said going in, you need to win at least one more series and not get swept in the rest of them. They haven't won the other series, but they haven't been swept yet. So that's good. But the fact remains is the vibes aren't great, and the loss on Sunday was just absolutely gut-wrenching, especially considering that Judd he tied the record with Kyle Gordon for most career home runs, 48, and you can't even celebrate it because your regional hosts take another smack with a gut-wrenching loss to Arkansas.
The head-scratcher to me is when Walker Hooks was brought in on Saturday with a pretty substantial lead. When he warms up and he gets ready to go, they put him in the game. Made me a little nervous, and that would prove to be true because
it didn't make any sense.
Well, it made me nervous because I knew they might need him on Sunday. And sure enough, Judd comes in, hits the home run. Ole Miss goes up 3-2. I was a little perplexed with the J.P. Robertson insert there. I felt like J.P., and obviously this is Monday morning quarterback legitimately, but I felt like J.P. would have been a great spot for him to come in on Saturday. Once again, Mike and Joel Mangrum know more baseball than I'll ever know. But just from watching the team, I felt like that might be a better spot for him. And then that way you've got a fresh Walker Hooks on Sunday. Walker obviously didn't have all of his stuff. And then the guy that hasn't had a base hit since April the 10th walks it off. I did feel like whenever, and I forget his name.
April the 10th,
Yeah.
dude.
I did feel like whenever he hit the bomb that was foul, I thought, I think he may be on him a little bit. Fouled a couple of pitches off. I didn't feel good about the at bat. And sure enough, he hits the home run. And
Tank.
you'll remember the guy that before him. He got on base. I don't know if it was I think it was a hit. I was outside, working, but I think it was a base hit that got him on base. But here's the thing: is you're right, 4-2. And you don't have the luxury of the Governor's Cup to kind of fall back on. I do.
Well,
believe,
you knew that was coming.
Yeah,
I mean, you knew you were going to have that. You don't beat State. You've lost. What's the record?
It's 10-30. So I don't know who came up with that. Austin Foley, by the way, congratulations to him. I know he'd been struggling, and
Heck yeah.
he had a big weekend, and congratulations to him. That's good moving forward. But I will say this too, from a demographic standpoint. Now you look at Ole Miss, Southern Miss, and Mississippi State. There's no way the three Mississippi teams are going to host.
Mm-mm.
So if
of those three, who's playing the worst?
Ole Miss.
Okay.
I think it's Ole Miss because I think State's not playing as bad, and I really can't put State above Ole Miss because they swept them. I mean, it's hard to do that. Not only swept them, won the Governor's Cup from 4-0, and Southern won their series, I believe. So, they love to do funny things. That being that you're right, Ole Miss fan, they should have won yesterday. Walker Hooks, if he's fresh, I think closes it out. Ole Miss has the tiger by the tail. They've won 2 out of 3, and then they have a chance to, if they at least win one against A&M and win the series against Alabama, I think that gets them to 16 and they host without any work in the SEC tournament. But that's not how it is. I just feel like, Hooks being fresh would have helped. But you know what? He wasn't fresh. Ole Miss can't do anything but hit the long ball. That's the only way they can score and manufacture runs, and that's a problem.
Yep.
You're right, Ole Miss has to have more out of Hunter Elliott. It just feels like since his injury, it just has been difficult. But
2 injuries, 2 of them. He was good last year, but it wasn't like he was Hunter Elliott. There's a reason why he wasn't drafted in 20 rounds in the summer.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that elite stuff anymore. Competitive as all get out. Man, I'd take him. I'd roll him out there first if it was a do or die game. He's got that same type of aura and stripes on the wall like Doug Nikhazy did.
Yeah, somebody said move him to – no, just leave him there.
Oh, no, I disagree with that completely. I think they need to change the rotation.
I'm fine with the rotation as it is.
Hey, when they won the national championship, when he was at his very best in 2022 as a freshman, he was on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Cade Townsend is arguably the best.
So you move Cade to Friday.
Cade needs to be on Friday.
Rabe
on Saturday. Leave Rabe on Sunday. Rabe's great on Sunday.
Okay.
Sunday's hard. I don't want because here's the thing. You get to Sunday with Hunter, and he has one of those blow up things because he's a notoriously slow starter. It's made worse and been exacerbated because he's not the same pitcher he used to be, where he used to get in trouble in the first, second inning, fill up the bases and stuff like that. He'd get out of it because he was Hunter. Well, now he doesn't have the stuff to get out of it anymore. So on Sunday, when your bullpen is already –
yeah, you could convince me to move Cade to Friday and maybe not use as many arms. The problem with Cade, if he has, very many
Walker Hooks, because you're right, Walker Hooks on Saturday was boneheaded when you did it, regardless of what happened on Sunday.
I'm sure there's a reason for it. I just didn't understand it at that moment.
I do because Mike has his guys. That's my opinion. I mean, it's just like he doesn't trust anybody else.
He his guys on Sunday too. I mean, I just really wish Walker Hooks would have been fresh on Sunday. Somebody pitched it. Well, he only pitched. Yeah, but when you get somebody warmed up in the bullpen, they're ready to go. That's it.
You got to change that. Hunter's not the same guy he was. He's not, and it's okay to admit that. But these last couple starts have been as bad as it comes. But it's more about bullpen usage. That's why they lost at Arkansas.
Well, here's a tell the tape to use an old HBO Sports mantra of boxing. Is you have Texas A&M coming up. It's to me, A&M is one of the best teams in the conference, bar none.
They're awesome.
Story, full stop, as people would say. And then you've got Alabama, who I don't know how good Vanderbilt is. I've watched them a little. They're pretty good, I thought. And, I mean, they swept them. I mean, they swept Alabama. So, They swept Vandy. So, they've got their work cut out for them. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I looked at the latest RPI, and Ole Miss is not ranked in the latest Baseball America poll. And I looked but more importantly, I looked at Warren Nolan's RPI. Right now, the strength of schedule is 5 in the country, and that's in the most difficult league in the country in the SEC. So, looking at this team from that standpoint, the RPI is going to be where it is. Once again, from a hosting standpoint, why I think they need to get to 16 is because I think Mississippi State's gonna host. I think there's a really good chance Southern Miss hosts because the committee loves to do things like that, giving host spots to non-Power 5 teams. I know that's not the usage in baseball, but everybody knows where I'm coming from, and that leaves possibly Ole Miss is the last man out. That's why I think you have to get to 16, and it wouldn't hurt to get hot in the tournament.
Well, I just want to say, despite the bummer nature of that, we've told you what they need to do. We agree that they need to change up the rotation. Will they do it? If you made me guess in how long I've been doing this and all of those years have included Mike Bianco, I would be shocked, absolutely shocked if he made a change in the rotation. I don't expect that at all. We'll see. But right now, for Ole Miss, it's pretty simple. Get to those 16 SEC wins because that RPI is strong enough. But they've wasted many an opportunity the last couple of weeks. That's the thing is they're playing competitive baseball and they're right there. Like they have legitimate go watch the tape and see, oh yeah, you should have won both of these back-to-back series, Arkansas and Georgia. The bottom line is ifs and buts, candy and nuts, and you didn't. So now what do you got to do? 4-2 the rest of the way. This has been Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter in the Riverland Roofing Studio, 662-644-4297. RiverlandRoofing.com. This QR code right beside my face is for the Ole Miss Spirit. That's the website that I write for, the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On3. Scan this QR code today. Sign up for $1 to try us out for 5 days. $1, then it switches to an annual. But for 5 days, you can give it a shot. We talk about Ole Miss. We do this all day, every day, not just on a podcast for a little over an hour, but throughout the day, I'm on there all the time posting messages. Brad's doing it more often. I'm proud of him. Sudu, he still sucks, so we'll continue to work on Sudu. But the Ole Miss Spirit is the place to be when you're not here with us on Talk of Champions. And wherever you get your Talk of Champions, be it on YouTube or in Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get it, leave a 5-star review, doesn't matter what you say, as long as you make sure to say thumbs up, 5 stars. Say, Ben, you interrupt Brad too much. That's one of the first ones I got, which is not incorrect. They're like, Ben, you asked him to grade the position groups, and then you graded them. You're right. I'm an idiot. You're on to me. But we thank you for joining us every single day here on Talk of Champions. Tomorrow, Brad will be with Sparky Reardon, Brad.
Yeah, excited about that. Talking with Sparky about just his years at Ole Miss and what we like to do sometimes. We visited with Jeff Robertson not long ago, kind of talking about the world of Ole Miss baseball, maybe off the field, if you will. And we're going to talk with Sparky about the years at Ole Miss and how much he has poured into the program, or the university, I should say. So I'm excited to talk with him, kind of more of an Oxford series, if you will, and excited about that. Down the road, we'll hear from Kermit Davis. Visit with him. He was at the Derby, and I had a great time with his family. So I want to get Coach's thoughts on the world of college basketball, about the expansion of the tournament, and also kind of recap the SEC season in the world of NIL. So we'll have Coach coming down the road, Will Kohlmeyer, who does play-by-play for the SEC Network Plus, both at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Troy, and all across the South. So we'll hear from Will, and there are many others that we'll be talking to. So we're excited about that from an interview standpoint. And Ben, I know you've got some things cooking with the Ole Miss athletic department with some players.
Yep, and we'll be covering all of those things and rolling all of those things out over the coming days. Landon Barnes, Ole Miss stud freshman, who was among the talk of spring football, which wrapped last week. He will join us on Friday, so be on the lookout for that. It's Landon Barnes, absolute stud. We want to have y'all back here on Talk of Champions, planning to do that one 10 a.m., man. Tomorrow, I don't know what the time is with Brad, but 10 a.m., are we going to do our 6 p.m. show tomorrow night, or are we just going to let you and Spark? We'll talk about it. That's off the air.
We'll talk about it later. But Sparky and I will be talking at 9:30 in the morning.
In the morning.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'll be up there with you that morning, but I will be back here on Wednesday for the recruiting show with Zach at 10 a.m. More stuff to come. Be on the lookout. Go to the Ole Miss Spirit, and we'll have full schedule for Talk of Champions and everything else. Thank you, Brad. I'll see you soon.
See you, everybody.